one hand. On the other hand, we seem to be moving more towards a Massachusetts model. Has the Massachusetts health insurance influenced divorces? Or
it really hasn't.
And so you don't think?
I don't think the Massachusetts health insurance has influenced it, because there's already federal statute and in Massachusetts, and I think in a lot of other jurisdictions, after divorce, the party who doesn't have the health insurance through employment can stay on the health insurance under certain terms and conditions, and those terms and conditions are defined differently.
The COBRA you're talking about?
Well, even without COBRA, even before COBRA.
In Massachusetts, I did a case once with Massachusetts, and I was intrigued because it was one of the few states in which the wife could stay on the health insurance.
Right.
Also, I mean, the issue that I was sort of referring to is very often we do a divorce case where the husband has the health insurance, the wife doesn't have health insurance, they get divorced, she loses her health insurance, has a pre-existing condition or some issue like that, or can't afford the health insurance. I'm not sure, as I was sort of saying, in Massachusetts.
So in Massachusetts, that's different. After divorce, using your example, the wife can stay on the husband's health insurance as long as he has a family plan. And so you want children who are still minors, so that he has a family plan, and there's no additional cost to keep the wife on the health insurance if he has a family plan. So she can stay on until she remarries, which bumps her off, of course, or he remarries, which bumps her off.
I mean, it seems I've had couples who come in and said they don't want to divorce because they don't want to lose the health insurance, or they do a legal, in the days when you could do a legal separation and it wasn't a terminating event. But so it's interesting that it hasn't really influenced it that much. I thought it would have had more of an influence.
I don't see it as much of an influence, and maybe it's because we take it for granted. Health insurance is so expensive, and we do take it for granted in Massachusetts that after divorce, one spouse will be able to stay on as long as there's the option of the family plan.
You know, it says that here in Arizona and other places I've seen, it's really been a major issue and a major cost in doing that one. Once again, taking our sort of Olympian view here. What are some of the changes that, I mean, given some of the problems, you've sort of said that you've seen changes towards collaborative. What other changes would you like to see in divorce? If you had that magic wand that you could wave, or also, and where do you think changes are coming that we don't have to wave the magic wand for?
Well, I think I would love to see collaborative divorce be universal. I think it's an ideal option for parties who are having conflict and who still want to be represented by attorneys. So they want to make sure that they have their legal experts at the table with them. And because the standards of behavior are so high in collaborative divorce, where we're all really pledging ourselves to act with mutual respect, we model good behavior, and I think that has a derivative effect for the couple and for their children. So I would love to see that. We've had.
How do we do? How do we
do that? Well, we educate the public. We educate the public, and they go to that website. If I can say it again.
Go up, absolutely.
Thanks.
Make sure you have your pencils out.
I'm going to grab that opportunity. www.collaborativepractice.com. That's the website for the International Academy of Collaborative Professionals, and you can find collaborative professionals from all over the world. I'm sure there's an Arizona website as well, but if you're looking for Arizona practitioners, they're on that other website.
Good. But it just seems to me that people's knee-jerk reaction, and that's the way I've always referred to it, is, you know, you'll get a couple, the husband or the wife will come in, and they've been thinking about getting a divorce for a long period of time. Their spouse, it comes out of the blue, and they feel threatened, and collaborative or mediation, just, you know, they're frightened.
Yes.
So I'm not sure how, I mean, how do we...
Well, I think we talk to them about the alternative, because if you're frightened, and if you're frightened about your future, which makes perfect sense, why would you go to court and let a judge who doesn't know you or know anything about your family determine your future? So if you don't have one of the out-of-court settlement opportunities, like mediation or collaborative, then you put yourself, I think, at more risk. You go to court, and you get a particular judge on any given day. There's no way to know beforehand who that judge will be in certain jurisdictions. And you don't know what his or her idiosyncrasies are, so you can't even plan for them. And then they get to decide how often you see your kids, or how much of the pension you get, or when your house sells. That seems to be the ultimate risk, which I would want people to avoid.
I remember Judge Steinberg in Connecticut at one point used to say, would you let a judge decide which car you're going to buy?
Well, we do let judges decide, you know, when parents are going to see their children and when children are going to see their parents. We let judges decide who's going to get Christmas and how much time a parent's going to see their kids in the summers. This is madness to me. I would never let anyone decide that for myself, for my family, for my children.
It just seems to me, I guess in some states, I remember your experience, it seems some states have mandatory mediation or alternative dispute resolution before you can get... Maine
does. Maine is the one that's closest to us, and Maine has mandatory mediation, and you have to go for a couple of sessions, and if the mediation fails, you have to report back why the mediation has failed. So there's a little bit of an oxymoron about mandatory mediation, because mediation and collaborative law should be voluntary. It should be something that people really choose to do.
But you raised the word is choose, and I think part of the problem, I think some states, once again, have an obligation where attorneys are supposed to tell people of what all their choices are. I've never had a strong sense that that actually happens.
Well, it's interesting, again, since Massachusetts is where I practice, we actually have a form which counsel has to file with the court when we file the divorce papers, which says we have done exactly that, that we have instructed and educated our clients in the whole range of choices that they have.
Does that actually, I mean, do people actually do it?
Oh, we have to do it.
I know you have to do it, but I mean, sometimes there are forms and people just automatically check off the boxes and say, yes, we've done it, even when they haven't done it.
I think it's pretty high in our culture. I think what would make the form better would be if the client had to sign the form, which says my attorney talked to me about all my options, or we both signed the form. That would make it, that would close that loop that you just mentioned.
It's a possibility?
I think it's a possibility.
Well, it's a good, I hadn't thought about it. I think it's an excellent idea, because
Yeah.
I think the attorneys very often will not do that, or sometimes, you know.
Or we may do it superficially because, again, it's our field of practice. So we take things for granted and we use jargon and we kind of slide over some things because we're so comfortable with them. So I think having both the client and the attorney let the judge know that the client has really been educated about choices would be a good thing.
Okay, other the changes you'd like to see, anything in the parenting field?
The parenting field. I guess these parenting plans sometimes drive me a little bit crazy because they are so detailed. I understand that they have to be detailed because some parents can't negotiate every transaction or every transition. But I do worry that they make the children feel a little bit like chess pieces on the board. And what ends up happening is that they negotiate mom's time and dad's time, and then you hear children ask, well, what about my time? Where's my downtime? And when do I get to choose? So I think I'd like to see ways for the children's voices to be heard in ways that's healthy for children and doesn't give them the impression that they're in charge of the process.
In the early 70s, we sort of went to the no-fault divorce. It's interesting, in Arizona, there's a bill in the legislature now, which to bring fault back, actually.
No.
And I know fault, you know, in some states, fault in dividing assets, doing that one. What do you think about fault?
I'm so surprised to hear that because, you know, we look to Arizona for certain things. Arizona's out in front in terms of parenting plans and parent education. They have been out in front for years, so we look to Arizona to be pretty sensible. I'm shocked to hear that the possibility of fault would be reintroduced because I don't see how that can benefit families. It causes people to blame each other, to look backwards, and to try to capitalize on something that happened in the marriage, which might have been mutual.
Although I think sometimes over the years I've found the state legislators sometimes try to replay their divorce in law. And I've seen that in a lot of jurisdictions where they have a bad divorce, they have some problem, they try to
Right, and judges do that too, which is another reason that I'm leery about having families go in front of judges because they've had their divorces.
That raises an interesting issue in terms of that, and we've got to watch the time. We're getting really short on this one. So, quick question is I've sometimes thought whether the judges is the appropriate person to hear a divorce case and whether there should either be a panel with a therapist or somebody else. I mean, it seems to me that a lot of these are emotional issues, not always legal issues.
Well, I think that's true. They're often not legal issues, and sometimes they're common sense issues, and I don't think necessarily judges are the best one to talk about parenting plans or even the idiosyncrasies of our tax system. I'm not sure a panel would do it. I'd rather see people do collaborative divorce or mediation and not use the judge system.
Rita, thank you very much. We're running out of time, and I always want to make sure I have enough time to close out the show. It's been fascinating, and we've talked a lot of this offline and online and this stuff, so it's been interesting to finally do that. But it's been interesting to sort of take a look at the long range. I think we sometimes get so caught up in the short term of divorce that we can't do it. So once again, thank you very much for coming and being my guest while you were in Arizona this week. And we're always looking back to having you back in Arizona. It's good to do that. And you've been watching Divorce TV with Wally Marcus and my very special guest, Rita Pollak. And you can get more and watch us on YouTube. And there's our final part, where if you want to see us on YouTube, where you can see us. But thank you very much for watching Divorce TV.